Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua online Zoom service. We're glad you're here, that you can join us for our online worship service. Whether you have found us for the first time or been with us for several services now, we are glad that you are here. I have a few announcements this morning. One of them is that the community, the SCA, Community Agricultural Group that does pickups will be doing a no contact pickup in the parking lot. So you don't have to worry about having a problem with the current situation with the viruses in contact. My second announcement is that the Congregational Meeting is going to be June 7th, and it's going to be right after the church service. And the church service is going to be sort of a different service. It'll be a flower service, probably sharing pictures of flowers instead of real flowers. And the congregational meeting will start right after the service. So we hope that that will make it so that everybody can be there and vote on those important issues that are coming up. The third announcement, boy, sometimes we have no announcements when we're online, but the third announcement is that people on the mailing list for the church have been getting an email from Scott Taylor. It is a scam, a phishing scam, and you should ignore it. And if you reply to it, they will ask you to send money. That's what most scams are about today. And it seems to be that lots of people think that scams will work at this point because people are both compassionate and maybe nervous about what's happening. And it actually, the email has Scott's picture in it and looks fairly reasonable until they start asking for money or asking you to go buy a card and send it out to them. Yes. So please note that, and you can report it to your mail service if you choose, or just be careful around it. So now we are ready to enter the space of worship. Now is the time when we share our chalice lighting. If you have a candle or some other kind of device and you'd like to light it, please feel free. I have my small candle, and we'll repeat our words as we light the candle. We gather this hour of people as a people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. Because our theme this month is thresholds, and thresholds make me think of doors, I want to share a poem this morning by Marge Percy. It's called Opening Doors, Closing on Us. Maybe there is more of the magic in the idea of the door than in the door itself. It's always a matter of going through into something else. But while some doors lead to cathedrals arching up overhead with stormy skies, and some to sumptuous auditoriums, and some to caves of nuclear monsters, most just yield a bathroom or a closet. Still, the image of a door is important, passing from one place into another, one state to the other, boundaries and promises and threats. Inside to outside, light into dark, dark into light, cold into warm, known into strange, safe into terror, wind into stillness, silence into noise or music. We slice our life into segments by rituals, each a door to be a presumed new phase. We see ourselves progressing from room to room, perhaps dragging our toys along until the last door opens and we pass into what was. Now let's join together in our opening hymn 359, When We Are Gathered. Now it's time for me to share a story for all ages. Well, I'm not sure if my screen is sharing right with you. Just a minute. Let me do my share screen and see if I can get it to work right. Now you should see a picture. Do you see a picture of doors, doors, doors on your screen?
Nope.
Bill, do you see a picture of doors, doors, doors on your screen?
No, we don't see a picture, just you.
All right, well, just a minute. I'll go back out again. Just me. You don't want to see me any longer, that's for sure. Oh,
We like seeing you.
all right. I'm going to share my screen.
There it is.
Hey! Now I can read this book for all ages, which really is a book for young kids, not for all ages. And it's called Doors, Doors, Doors. And boy, are there a lot of doors on the front here. There are everyday doors, like the one to your bedroom. Now, you might not have a bright green door to your bedroom. You might have a white door. I have a white door. Or you might have a door with your name on it. My granddaughter has a sign on her door with her name on it. But they're everyday doors, like the one to your bedroom. Some houses have very fancy doors. This is a fancy door on a house in the old town. And I don't have a door like this to get into my house. Some houses have a garage door that opens so a car can go in. I know you can see the house door on this picture, but I think you could also see the garage door. The firehouse needs very big garage doors. Now, I bet if we were in person, some of the children would laugh and tell me they need big garage doors because the fire trucks are pretty big vehicles, not like a car, not even like a big car like an SUV, not even like a pickup truck. They're really big. Sliding doors are different kind of door, and sliding doors can be for going out onto a deck. And you can see through them as well as look through. Stores in the cities can have revolving doors that go round and round. I don't know if any of you have revolving doors, but they're kind of fun. Even a cat can have a little door to go in and out. A dollhouse, like this one from Melissa and Doug, has a very little door. Not much can go in it but the little people. There are closed doors, there are half-open doors, and there are doors that are all the way open. And every door just might be an opening to an adventure, which means we'd better open some doors and go through and find out what adventures are on the other side. I'm going to leave the screen share now and come back to me. A story for all ages. Doors. Now it's time for us to share joys and sorrows. We are a community that holds one another in our celebration of life and in our pain. Please share your joys and sorrows in the chat room. That's the chat room box on Zoom, or in the comment section if you're viewing us on YouTube later on. Know that whatever your heart is holding today, we are with you. Bill will play some quiet music while we join in our chat room. Now it's time to remind you that although we are only together virtually, it's still important that we join together in the spiritual practice of generosity. If you would like to give to this morning's offering, you can find a few ways to do so. They're going to be in the chat room today instead of on the screen as a visual there. You can give online at Canandaigua UU.org Connect, or you can physically mail in the check to the church. In either case, note that you'd like the gift to go to this Sunday's offering, and know that the board has decided that 100% of our offering, our plate offerings that are not listed for pledges, will go to our monthly service partner, and that service partner is Safe Harbors of Finger Lakes, a group that's doing important work in helping individuals cope better with these times. So the information will be shared in the chat room for those of you who want to be able to look at it and write it down.
Let me just point out, it's in the chat box right now. Not in the chat rooms.
Oh,
It's in the chat box. I think. Did it come up?
it didn't come up. But that's all right. It will come up. Right.
Got it.
There, now it came up. Now's the time in our service for centering and shared silence. Because our theme this month is thresholds, and thresholds can be seen not only as doors, doorways, but also as a place in between here and now, I want to begin our moment of centering and shared silence with a poem by Rumi and retold by Coleman Banks in a book called The Soul of Rumi. So please find a way to center yourself in whatever space you're using. Take a deep breath, let it out, and hear Rumi's words. There is a town where the soul is fed, where love hears truth and thrives, and another town that produces lies that degrade and starve love. Your voice is a small market set up between the two towns. Goods arrive from both directions, flimsy, fake items, and honestly made items, wholehearted tools and wares. Some travelers immediately know which is which. Some voices open a shop and spend 60 years cheating customers, gossiping when they leave, and flattering women to get their attention. Others, weary of the marketplace, they weary and they rarely go there. Let us think on the places in between as we take a moment for silence to think about our own voice. Every day we go through doorways. We step over thresholds. And we may not even think about what we're doing. We just walk out of one space and into another space. The threshold itself is neither one space or the other. It's the space in between. Usually we feel secure stepping over a physical threshold. We feel most secure in doing so when we know that we're in a familiar space and we know what's going to be on the other side, or maybe sunlight or a room light is lighting the area into which we will move. We might not feel so secure going over that threshold if the space is one we don't really know and we can't see what's on the other side. We might even pause for a second before we move on. I think this action of stepping over a threshold is surely a metaphor for life. The thresholds in life are the times we are in between one part of life and another. And sometimes we can enter the new phase of life feeling secure, comfortable, move into it quickly, and sometimes we can be afraid, reluctant, and move slowly. Maybe you remember leaving high school to go to college or to go to work. Certainly one of the important changes in the phases of life is this transition out of schooling into different schooling or into work. Other life's passages can be marriage or divorce, the birth of a child, the loss of parents. The list just goes on and on about all the important changes we face. But in life, sometimes we need to pause at a threshold and wait for a clarification, because unlike the thresholds to a new physical space, some thresholds in life may be able to take us in more than one way. This may be especially true when we are facing thresholds in our spiritual life. John O'Donnell, he's an Irish poet, you could probably tell that by the name, has written a book called To Bless the Space Between Us, a book of blessings. And in it he says, we find ourselves crossing some new thresholds we have never anticipated. Like spring secretly at work within the heart of winter, below the surfaces of our lives, huge changes are in fermentation. We never suspect a thing. Then when the grip of some long-enduring winter mentality begins to loosen, we find ourselves vulnerable to a flourish of possibility, and we are suddenly negotiating the challenge of a threshold. These moments of realizing we are negotiating the challenge of a threshold have come to prophets from time to time. The prophets have been recognized in the religious traditions underlying our UU religion. These prophets got called in their thresholds. When the Bible tells us about the 8th century BC prophet Isaiah, who finds himself being called to speak against an unfair ruler, the story suggests that he is reluctant to answer the call. Jesus of the Christian Bible is seen as asking, "Why me?" It sounds like reluctant to me. Stories of Mohammed reported that the angel Gabriel appeared to him and said, "Proclaim." But it seems Mohammed was also a reluctant prophet and took some time before he took on his role as prophet. Prophets were probably justified in being reluctant because they often faced persecution. Calls come to prophets. But O'Donnell also talks about a call, and he says, it is wise in your own life to be able to recognize and acknowledge the key threshold, to take your time, to feel all the varieties of presence that accrue there, to listen inward with complete attention until you hear the inner forward. That call will get it across. For Unitarians, the calls in our spiritual life may not come from an angel or a God, but rather they'll come, as O'Donohue suggests. It may be from an inner voice that comes with reflection. O'Donohue does not call us to stop and listen for the inner voice. He also tells us that we need to acknowledge the thresholds that we face, that we need to acknowledge the change in life, and that need may call for rituals. And we do have rituals. We have church rituals. We have weddings, membership services, dedication of babies and children born to our members, and memorial services. Some congregations with seniors in high school have a coming of age ritual. Some have rituals for name changes for transgender people. There are also rituals for the beginning of the church year and the changing of the seasons. We have a wheel that we turn now. So our church is important in the help it gives us in our acknowledgement of thresholds. But what if our personal call is not recognized in rituals that are held in our church? What if the inner voice is in fact calling us and telling us that we should make a personal change? We need to acknowledge the thresholds we are facing and celebrate our journey through it, even if we are reluctant to follow the call. And maybe for these we need personal rituals that we can call on. Personal rituals can help us use our senses to clarify meaning in what is happening in our lives. They can help us to move into a special place in our minds that calls us to use our creative powers to build our strength. The lists of personal rituals are long. Let me share just a small part of one list. You can find lists on anything on the internet, even personal rituals. Well, one of the things is aromas like incense, aroma therapy oils, or scented candles. Artwork, a meaningful picture. Bathing, showering, washing hands for cleanliness should become a ritual for all of us now. Balance, clearing, centering, bells, gongs, chimes. We begin our service with a chime. Crystals, gems, stones, dance, simple movements, mantras. Well, I hope from this short list that you get the idea that rituals are actions you take, sometimes with things that you use to help you focus your intentions. And what we do and use will be different for each of us, because personal rituals are just that, personal. In an essay titled Eclectic Spirituality, in a book by Scott Alexander called Everyday Spiritual Practices, Barbara Wells wrote about practices and that she engages in. But she makes the point that we choose our own practices and that we may change those practices as we change. She says, I believe there is no one-size-fits-all spirituality. Each person's spirituality will look different from everyone else's. So it seems that each person's rituals will look different from other people's rituals. When I need to acknowledge to myself that I'm in that time between here and there, I may burn a candle and sit and contemplate the moment, or I may go outside to my Zen garden and let a pattern form in the pebbles in my garden as I move my rake. And when I'm doing those quiet things, I have to just listen to the call that's coming from in me. Sometimes I will go out and acknowledge my spirits of life, the sun, earth, water, wind, and fire, with movement and words. And the movement will be repetitive every time. And some of the words will be repetitive acknowledgement. But I will also, in doing this kind of thing, state aloud my need for seeing more clearly, or try to state the call that has come to me as I waffle in my reluctance to follow any direction. Now you have to know I'm not real good at following directions sometimes. Or maybe I have to acknowledge that I am passing over that threshold and have come to terms with the change in my life. So it seems that my rituals sometimes pull me along and sometimes remind me to celebrate. Now, I've been a Unitarian for a long time. I have a chance to be a Unitarian for a long time because I'm not young. But I was not always a Unitarian. I was a teenager when I began to change. And as I began to change, I was reluctant to adopt personal rituals. I guess at first I was one of those Unitarians getting away from church and all of its expectations. And then as I began the hard work of exploring my own spirituality and taking responsibility for my own development, what Unitarians are encouraged to do, I also came to the realization that I needed rituals to support me in my efforts. Church rituals. I needed the lighting of a candle. I needed the playing of certain music. And I needed rituals. So my candles, my garden, my movement, and I even have some meditation beats. And I've become better appreciative of the rituals in church as I have become more aware of my personal need for rituals. Rituals do help us over life's transitions, over those thresholds. And so I personally need church with some of its rituals to help me through life's journey. And I need my rituals to help me answer my own personal life's calls. Blessed be.
Do you hear, oh my friend, in the place where
Let us all be sure that we take time to hear whatever calls come into our lives. Maybe we need to take time to think on our own rituals. While some of us may feel no need for rituals, some of us may need to have that help to rediscover life and the help that rituals can give us as we move through our lives. Now let's join together in our closing hymn, number 352, Find a Stillness. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we're together again.